Hello, everyone. Welcome to Hot Topic Tuesday on Liga Leaders. I'm Zach Sooty. We have Al Fragnoli and our special guest, Brandon Gunn. Gentlemen, got some exciting topics tonight. We're going to keep it simple. We're just going to talk playoffs. Let's start with the NHL. And NHL playoffs are underway. Who do you have in these first round matchups? Who do you have in the conference finals and Stanley Cup finals? And any teams that you're most looking forward to watch this postseason? Let's start with Brandon. What are your thoughts?
So I'll start in our very own Central Division. These are the teams that the Red Wings saw all season long. And the first matchup that we have is Carolina and Nashville. I just think in this series, even though they're playing each other pretty tight right now, Carolina is just too deep, especially in the forward part of their lineup, and they can match Nashville's defensive core. I just think that the depth on Carolina and the ability to play big, all of their defensemen are 6'3", 6'4", just space eaters. I think that that's just going to be too much for Nashville in the long run. We've seen Nashville struggle at times throughout the season. They barely crept into the playoffs. I think the Canes are actually going to pull this series out in five. Florida and Tampa Bay. This has been a great series for anybody who's not watching the NHL playoffs. I would strongly endorse this series. It's ugly. It's nasty. These teams do not like each other at all. There were a couple fights, a couple brawls in the last game. And on top of it all, we've got the Tampa Bay Lightning, who, first of all, they've got arguably the best goalie in the world on their team, arguably the best defenseman in the world on their team, in Victor Hedman and Andrei Vasilevsky in net. And they just happened to add Nikita Kucherov for game one of the playoffs, who's led the league in scoring, actually had 2 goals and an assist in his first game back, showing that he didn't have any rust while sitting out all season long. It's speculated that he's been healthy for a while, and they just sat him down just to kind of circumvent the cap. It's potential that that's the case. But either way, they got a hell of a player coming into the lineup in the playoffs, and man, he looked like he was ready to go. So I've got the Lightning in 6 in this series, just because Florida is a good team. So I do think that they'll put up a fight. But man, that Lightning squad is good. Moving on to the East Division, the Penguins and Islanders. I think this is going to be the year where we see the Penguins core start to get a little bit older and not be able to really maintain that playoff sturdiness that you need, and that just drive that you really need to get throughout the playoffs. So I've got the Penguins losing to the Islanders in 7. That Islanders system, the defensive system that Barry Trotz has, I just think it's going to suffocate the Penguins. And then with Tristan Jarry being in net for the Penguins, I just think he's a little too unproven to lead them to the next round. Capitals and Bruins. So right now, Capitals are up 1-0 in the series, and they're playing right now. They're currently tied. I think that honestly, going into the series, I had the Bruins winning this in 7, but it's going to be a really, really tough series for them to come back into if they go down 0-2 tonight. Keep in mind, Red Wings fans as well, that this series has the makings of what we're going to get back from that Mantha trade. So we are rooting for Washington to lose if you are a Red Wings fan and you want that draft capital to be higher in the draft. Moving to the West Division, Avalanche versus Blues. Avalanche are the President's Club trophy winning team. They've got a ton of scoring, headlined by Nathan McKinnon, who's a beast. Their defensive core is ridiculous. For those that remember, we sent Patrick Nemeth there at the trade deadline. He's like their 9th defenseman. It's crazy how deep they are. I think the Avs are going to win this one in 5. The Blues just struggled this year. They're not the Blues of 2 years ago. Jordan Binnington is just not the same guy that we've seen in previous playoffs. Knights and Wild. The goaltending display. So, Zach, this game was great. Game 1. This game went 0-0 all the way into overtime. Awesome display of goalies just doing their work there. Marc-Andre Fleury, actually Al's pick for the Conn Smythe. He proved it. I mean, he was a beast in that first game, and it went to overtime before finally Minnesota pulled out the victory. So I do still have the Vegas Golden Knights winning that series in 6. And then we go into the North Division that actually still has not kicked off the playoffs yet, because they're still in the regular season. So they're pulling a page out of the NBA's book where You got teams playing round 1, teams playing round 2, regular season, postseason, everything's, all over the place. But it looks like the Leafs and Canadiens are going to match up there. I just think the Leafs are going to be too much for the Canadiens with Austin Matthews, Mitch Marner. I mean, the list goes on and on with the scoring depth that they have. And that's going to be another good series to watch too. Those teams do not like each other, so they're going to be at each other. And I think ultimately Toronto finally makes it out of the first round, although I'm not rooting for that. The Oilers versus the Jets. So this is where you see Connor McDavid, Leon Draisaitl being the top 2-point getters in the league, just tearing it up, scoring it well. Connor McDavid actually averaged 2 points per game this season, which is something crazy. If he wasn't 2 points, he was just under it. He's ridiculous. That being said, team is deeper than a couple of individuals. Everybody's on Edmonton to get out of this first round this year. I think that the Jets, even though they crept in, limped in, I think that they're going to get through in 7 games here. Now, fast forwarding to the conference finals, I've got the Avalanche and the Bruins. That's my belief going in, and I think the Avs take that in 7. The only reason why is because I just think that the goaltending for Colorado is just going to hold them back a little bit, and I was really surprised that they didn't pick anybody up at the deadline. I've got the Lightning versus the Leafs on the other side with the Lightning in 6, and then I've got the Avalanche ultimately beating the Lightning in 7 games, just because I don't know. Repeats are so hard in the NHL. So I think that the Lightning could do it. Absolutely. And that's why I threw it to 7 games, because I really think that once you get to the Stanley Cup finals, it's really going to depend on who's healthy, who's hot, all of the things that lead in, Stanley Cup finals, or the Stanley Cup playoffs are such a brutal, grueling test of teams that, it's pretty much just seeing who survives, all of that. So in terms of the teams that I'm looking forward to most, it's Washington. I want to see where the Wings get to pick in the first round next year. Toronto, just because the stigma on them is they'd never get out of the first round. Now they've finally got some scoring. They've got some depth. Can they finally do it? And then Tampa, just because, once again, it is so hard to repeat. So those are the teams that I'm keeping an eye on. What are your thoughts, Al?
So, Brandon, you mentioned a couple of things. First of all, you can't talk about the Colorado Avalanche winning the Stanley Cup here in Michigan, right? I know that rivalry is long gone from the 90s and early 2000s, but I still don't want to see the Avalanche win the Stanley Cup. And you can't be talking about goaltending with the Pittsburgh Pirates in front of Mr. Zach Sooty. That's not going to make him very happy. Still know you're bitter over there, Zach, with Marc-Andre Fleury, which my Stanley Cup champion is probably not going to thrill you. But anyway, so I'll start in the Canadian division that has not begun yet. As you mentioned, Brandon, I like Toronto and Montreal. I think that's going to be a really exciting series. These teams haven't matched in the postseason in 40 some years, some crazy amount of years. So that's going to be a heated rivalry. I think that's going to be really, really intense. Brandon, you mentioned a lot of these series being physical. It's crazy because I feel like almost every series is going to be very high intensity, which is awesome. That's one of the reasons I love the NHL postseason. But anyway, I'm going to take Toronto knocking off Montreal. I'm going to take Edmonton beating Winnipeg and moving on in that series. I think that'll be a really good one. In the second round with Toronto and Edmonton, I think that's going to be a really exciting series. I can see this going either direction. I'm ultimately going to go with Toronto just because I think their defense is a little bit better than Edmonton's. Edmonton's offense, I know, is amazing. Those might be some really high-scoring games, which will be exciting for fans to watch. But I'm going to lean with Toronto taking the leap. So not only making it out of the first round, going past the second round, I have them going to the Stanley Cup Finals. So there's my finals pick from the East. With Pittsburgh and the New York Islanders, I have Pittsburgh winning that series. I think that's going to be an awesome, gritty, tough series. I think it's going to go 6 or 7, but I'm going to lean with Pittsburgh. In Washington, Boston, even if Washington ends up going up 2-0 here tonight, I think Boston still has a good chance to go back home, win 2 games, and still win this series. So I'm not going to count them out. I think Boston is going to win the series in 7. And then I think Pittsburgh is going to end up knocking off Boston. And then I ultimately have, as I mentioned, Toronto beating Pittsburgh in the conference finals there. For Colorado, St. Louis, I think Colorado is way too much for St. Louis to handle. I think this might be a quick series. Might be some close games, but I just think offensively Colorado has too much. So I think they're going to knock off St. Louis. Vegas and Minnesota, I think, is going to be another great series. Minnesota has been really hot the last couple of months to end the season, but I think Vegas is going to be too much. They're going to bounce forward, play Colorado. I think this is going to be an incredible series, probably going to go 6 or 7 games. A lot of offense, I think we'll see here. But Marc-Andre Fleury, Zach's favorite player in the NHL, is going to carry Vegas to the next round and ultimately to the Stanley Cup Finals. Carolina and Nashville, I think, will be a pretty good series as well, but I'm going to take Carolina with that. Florida and Tampa Bay, Brandon, as you mentioned, very tough physical series so far in the starts from what we've seen in the first game. I think this is going to continue on. These teams are going to get beat up. You know what we're going to have to watch for, though, is this, if it is a long series, this is certainly going to give Carolina or Nashville, if they come up with an upset, a chance to knock off one of these teams, because I do think that this is going to be an incredibly intense series all the way to the finish. And these teams are knocking each other out with every single shift on the ice. But I'm going to go with Tampa in an exciting 6 or 7 game series there. I'm going to take Tampa to knock off Carolina, even though it's going to be a tough one for them. And then I have, as I mentioned, Vegas knocking off Tampa. Brandon, to your point, as these teams progress through the playoffs, it's a long, grueling postseason. And with Tampa coming off of last season's Stanley Cup champions, I don't think they're going to be able to make it to the finals. So I'm going to ultimately go with the Vegas Golden Knights, which would be an incredible story in their 3rd year in the NHL. They had a good season last year, and in their 1st year, they made it to the finals, as everybody knows. But they're finally going to win a Stanley Cup this year. Marc-Andre Fleury, Conn Smythe Trophy winner, and Zach is left at home crying because he's not a Pittsburgh Penguin. Zach, why don't you tell us who your thoughts are for the NHL playoffs?
So with the Vegas Golden Knights, I will always be a fan as long as they have Marc-Andre Fleury. So number 2 team for Zach is the Vegas Golden Knights. Pittsburgh always number 1. Recently moved to the Colorado area. Colorado now number 3. So moved up the ranks pretty quickly. I know you guys don't like that.
Yeah.
But I'm not going to go into too much detail as to my picks. In the first round, I like Toronto, Edmonton, Colorado, and Vegas. I like Tampa, Nashville, Washington, and Pittsburgh. But I will say that I wouldn't be surprised if the Islanders pull out a series win against the Pens. They just seem to be pesty, and I think they can really disrupt that whole bracket. I think if they get out of the first round, they can just wreak havoc the rest of the playoffs. So I think if they can get over that hurdle, the Islanders could be a team that could cause some ruckus, if you will. But I'm gonna hope that the Penguins can pull it out in 6 games. In a 7th game, I get a little worried against the Islanders. My final prediction, I have Tampa and Toronto. Toronto winning it all. But I'm rooting for a Penguins Vegas final. And I don't know. I don't know who I want to see it win more, Marc-Andre Fleury, the Pittsburgh Penguins, because Al, it's no secret that I was not a fan of the Penguins losing Marc-Andre Fleury. I thought they should have done everything they could to keep him, and as I sometimes feel like the Pittsburgh sports fans and media can easily run out goalies and high-profile players very easily. And Marc-Andre Fleury I think, still has so many more years of success coming for him. So I'm rooting for Penguins Vegas, but I think I got Toronto winning it all. All right, guys. Up next, NBA playoffs starting. Where to begin, I guess, with the NBA playoffs? We have this play-in tournament. When I first read it, I had to read it 3 times over for it to make sense to me. It felt like something I designed in my backyard years ago, just to make sure I got into the playoffs in my backyard, series. But the play-in tournament is about to get underway. Who do you think in the East and West come out of the play-in tournament? And do you like this concept? What are your thoughts on the NBA putting together this play-in tournament? And ultimately, who do you have in the conference finals and NBA finals? And who do you like? Just storylines, players? What are you watching? Brandon, what are your thoughts?
So, yeah, I mean, Zach, it is interesting. You're looking at it, and you've got a roadmap to try to figure out who's playing who and everything. Once you consider the play-in games and everything else, in the Eastern play-in games, you've got Charlotte and Indiana. I've got the Pacers taking that play-in game and getting into the playoffs. The Wizards and the Celtics. Got the Celtics winning that matchup there and getting into the playoffs ultimately. And then on the Western side, San Antonio and Memphis. I've got Memphis winning over San Antonio, Golden State and LA. I've actually got the Lakers winning that game. Man, I just, you look at the names and it's purely on paper that I'm taking them, but Golden State's been hot and can definitely cause a problem there. In terms of the format itself, I think it reminds me of March Madness a little bit. The one and done games are so interesting and draw fans just because, it's not this 7-game series where if you miss game 1, that's all right. I'll pick it up in game 2 or 3. And, you can still absorb a lot of the energy and things like that if you miss a game. But with the play-in format, I absolutely love it. I think it, once again, just reminds you a little bit of March Madness. So, and once again, this is the COVID year. So why not try it, right? Throw everything at the wall, see what sticks, and who knows? I mean, if it draws some more fans or fans that normally wouldn't be watching the NBA, maybe it's something you do moving forward. In terms of the conference finals, I've got Brooklyn and Philadelphia, with Brooklyn winning that series. And then in the West, I've got the Clippers and Utah, with Utah winning there, and then ultimately Brooklyn winning the NBA finals. Now, the storylines, I think there are some very interesting storylines, and we can start right with the play-in games. The Lakers, we've got AD, who's, hurt all the time. LeBron, who's, kind of hurt. He announced earlier in the year he doesn't think he'll ever be back to 100%. He said that, he's declaring the other team's players. Steph, MVP of the season already. There are so many storylines just with the Lakers, and they are built for this situation. They are built to coast through the season, pick it up in the playoffs and go, but they just look old. They're kind of like the Walking Dead right now. Are they going to get up and do something, or what's going to happen here? Now, Golden State on the other side of this play-in game, I think is really interesting because when was it? Was it as recent as 2 years ago when they were tabbed as the next dynasty that was going to go, almost to pull LeBron there? Not one, not two, not, I mean, how many were they going to win before everything got broken up and then a couple of injuries happened? And now both of these teams find themselves in a play-in game just to make the playoffs. I mean, to me, that's amazing in itself. But I think that there are a lot of storylines there. I love the Golden State LA matchup personally. Brooklyn, they're once again a super team that formed. Are they going to be able to perform in the bright lights and bring it all home? I know that they're the favorites, and then the Lakers are favored behind them by Vegas. So I think it's going to be interesting to see because you're going to have a lot of big names with a lot of pressure on them, and it's really going to come down to who can perform when those bright lights are on. So what are your thoughts, Al?
Yeah, so I'm excited for this postseason to start. I normally don't get super excited about the NBA playoffs because I usually look at it and you can tell what teams are definitely going to be in the finals. This year, I'm actually not entirely sure, and I actually love that. So, Brandon, for the play-in tournament that starts Tuesday and Wednesday here, I don't have a lot of the similar picks that you do. So out of the East, with the Celtics and Wizards 7-8 matchup, I actually have Washington. I think they've been hot towards the end here, and Boston has slumped a little bit. So I look for Washington to knock off the Celtics and take the 7 seed there. Pacers, Hornets, I'm going to take Indiana here. So the Pacers are going to move on. They'll play Boston, and then I think Boston will win that second game to solidify the 8th seed there. When you look at the West, we talk about the Lakers, defending NBA champions. They shouldn't even be in this position. They should be moving on. They should have a playoff spot locked up. They have not played well in the last month and a half. That's no secret to anybody who's following the league. I say that Golden State, who's won 7 in a row, I believe, to end the season, is going to knock off the Lakers. It's going to be a fantastic game, but I think the Warriors win, and I'm going to take the Spurs over Memphis. One of the best coaches ever, Greg Popovich, is going to lead them to a tight victory there. And then I'm going to take the Spurs to shock, and I mean absolutely shock the Lakers and get that 8 seed. And then we're going to have to listen to LeBron James complain. We're going to have to listen to everything and every reason why the Lakers aren't moving on, what's going on. They're going to need to blow it up, change things. So we're going to have to listen to that for a couple of days. But I'm going to say the Warriors get the 7 seed and the Spurs get the 8 seed. But I think it's going to be a lot of fun. Moving forward in upcoming years, I really don't hope that they stick with this concept. I like it this year. I get it why they're doing it with 10 less games or whatnot due to COVID, try and create some excitement. It's a great marketing tactic. There's going to be a ton of people glued to the TV for that 1 game elimination, right? So I think it's a great marketing concept, but overall, I hope the league doesn't really stick with it. I just want, if you're 7 or 8, you're a 7 or 8. You don't need to take a chance at losing a game and being eliminated from postseason. So that's the way I look at it. I actually agree with LeBron James there. But anyway, as we move forward, again, as I mentioned, I do love the setup this year because I think so many teams are really, really tight and close. I'm going to say, though, out of the Western Conference, which I think is absolutely loaded, I'm going with Portland and Phoenix in the conference finals, and I'm going to go with Phoenix making it to the NBA finals. So this reminds me of basketball in the 90s, which I love. That's going to take me to the Eastern Conference too. I love seeing the New York Knicks up there. I think they're going to knock off Atlanta, but they're not going to get past Philly. So I'm going to say Philly, and I'm going to put Milwaukee in the conference finals. Everybody keeps talking Brooklyn. But I'm going to say Milwaukee knocks off Brooklyn in the second round, and then you're going to have Philadelphia and Phoenix in the NBA finals. And Alex, if you're watching, I'm sorry, I'm not taking the 76ers to win it. The Phoenix Suns are going to be winning the NBA championship this year. When we talk about storylines, I am looking forward to really seeing what happens with the Lakers in these play-in games because I want to see if they can make it in. I don't think they will, as I mentioned. And then I'm really looking forward to watching the Portland Trailblazers. I absolutely love watching Damian Lillard play basketball. I think he is phenomenal. One of the best three-point shooters, one of the best clutch three-point shooters we've ever seen. And I cannot wait to watch the Portland Trailblazers in the postseason. That's what I'm looking forward to the most. Zach?
Well, Al, I'm surprised with your picks. I think I align more with Brandon here. So I'll run through real quick. I got the Wizards to beat the Celtics. I'm not going to go against Russell Westbrook in a playing game. Pacers to beat the Hornets. Hornets not having their second leading scorer in Gordon Hayward, and Ball had wrist surgery, hasn't been the same since he's come back. I do think the Lakers are going to beat the Warriors, but I also think that Steph Curry can go NBA Jam on fire and probably beat them himself. So I won't say that the Lakers are in. I really think it will probably be the highlight of the playing games. And you said about ratings and getting people interested. The Lakers-Warriors game is going to be that game. Like you said, I'm not a fan of this format. I understand why they're doing it this season. I hope it doesn't, carry on for years ahead. But this one game could be the reason they keep it if it's as good as everybody, is the expectations are. I do have the Grizzlies to beat the Spurs. With the Grizzlies win, they'll be forced to play Steph Curry and the Warriors. And I really think the Warriors will pull that one out. I got the Celtics advancing by beating the Pacers. So almost in line with a lot of what Brandon said there. In the finals, I had the same Final Four as Brandon. I think you had Brooklyn and Philly and the Clippers in Utah, which I was on. But I'm unlike Al. I'm rooting for our friend Alex Yo. I'm going to trust the process. The 76ers are going to win, and I want to see my man Alex Yo with a ring on. So, Sixers winning it.
Sixers winning it over who in the finals?
I got the Sixers beating the Jazz.
The Jazz, Utah Jazz. Okay. All these teams bringing us back to 1990s basketball. I love it. I love it. We just need some NBA on NBC real soon with the greatest theme song ever for any sports. But that's a story for another day. Anyway, I do love some of your guys' picks. I think this was awesome. Zach, you didn't sound really confident there on your Lakers pick over the Warriors, though. I just want to make sure that our audience understands that. You didn't sound sold on it. So you said
I'm
Steph
not
Curry.
sold. Steph Curry can go NBA Jam on fire for anyone who liked to play that video game back in the day. NBA Jam.
All right, there you have it, folks. We don't know who's going to win that game. So anyway, it should be an exciting postseason for both the NBA playoffs and the NHL playoffs. I can't wait to watch the next 2 months of this exciting sports action. We want to thank everybody for joining us tonight. We hope you enjoyed our conversation. We thank you for tuning in and listening to us. We hope you listen to us Sunday when we have our next interview guest, and we hope you tune in next Tuesday as well for another edition of Hot Topic Tuesday. Thanks.
Thank you.